In this video, going to repair this Denon X1200W stereo receiver. And let's just put it like this way. Someone's been inside this thing and did a lot of damage, and I'll show that once I get this thing opened up and stuff like that. But to even get to the point of testing it to see what exactly the original problem was, I had to do a few repairs just to get it to that point, because the guy broke in a lot of stuff. But either way it goes, let's turn it on and I'll show you what the problem is. And yet, that's the left channel. It is shot. And long story short, someone attempted to repair the amplifier. They went ahead and changed the drivers and stuff like that, but they didn't bother to change anything else. That's actually probably likely the problem. But they also managed to break the tuner and several other things too as well. And I'm going to go ahead in the next part, get this thing apart, and I'll show you the damage they caused pretty much. So I have the cover off the receiver off, and I figure I'll show you why I had to do some repairs before I could even test this thing. Because this customer had it at another shop that attempted to do repairs to it, and the original problem was he just said the left channel was no longer working. So that's why he brought it to that shop. And unfortunately it caused a few problems. One of the complaints the customer said was the tuner no longer worked, and I found out the reason why very quickly. The last shop that worked on this thing butchered this thing up pretty badly, but one of the things they did was they pretty much broke half the tuner. Like, the board was pretty much cracked all the way, almost in half. So I had to go ahead and repair that and glue the PCB board back, of course, and stuff like that. And you can see there, I went ahead and jumped all the broken tracks and stuff that was on this board and stuff. But they literally broke the tuner somehow in half, and I don't even know how you do that, because anyone that knows that works on these type of receivers and stuff like that, that you gotta take this back cover off, remove the digital board completely, and if you remove all the screws properly and stuff, the tuner lifts up with the digital board, so there's no really chance of breaking it in order to get to the amplifier section, which was the problem. So if you're trying to repair the amplifier, you have to remove the digital board anyway. So how would you manage to break this is beyond me, unless he tried to remove this first and try to slide it out. I have no clue, but either way it goes, the tuner does work. I did repair it, and I would just replace it, but you can't find replacements for this, so I ended up repairing it as best as I could, and it's strong. It's not going to break again, so it should be fine. Either way it goes, we'll get into the other butchery, or at least show you some of it. What did he use to solder and desolder that? I'm going to replace that. Thankfully, I do have another board with another driver on it, so I'll go and take that out, replace it. And I don't even want to know what's underneath the board. I haven't even gotten that far yet, but either way it goes, you can see this thing was butchered up, so the next plan of attack is to get this thing apart. Unfortunately, these are not like the older receivers. Like these here, I can service, because if I have to use my oscilloscope or multimeter to this thing while it's on, I can, you know what I mean? I can go through a service manual, troubleshooting and stuff like that, and no big deal, because you can access everything on these, and you can access everything even on both sides and stuff like that to make your adjustments and stuff that you need to do, or test voltages and stuff. So it's very easy on these to service. These are actually really easy to service. This here, not so much, because for me to get the amplifier board out, you can see there I can't work on it while it's inside the chassis because there's no access panel. And this is one that always kills me. Why they do that with these newer receivers. Now on the Marantz and stuff like that, they actually, on some of the higher end Marantz, you can actually slide the amplifier section out through the back and stuff like that. But on this particular one, and I just noticed that too. Is that foot broken? Oh yeah, it's broken. Where did it go? I know it was here. Oh yeah, it's right there. He taped that. I don't want to even get into this. But either way it goes, In order to actually do anything to this thing, I had to disassemble everything off this chassis, the back case and stuff like that, and it's next to impossible to go ahead and actually trace anything out and stuff like that, because you got to remove the power supply and everything else if you're even going to attempt to, and figure out how you get everything wired up just to test it. So the only thing I can do is fly blind, I guess. Hope that I find the problem on the board relatively easily and replace whatever that's not measuring correctly and stuff like that, and hope that fixes the issue. Or it's so obvious enough I just spot it and see it, because to do any testing live on this thing is going to be next to impossible. But let me go and get this all the way apart, and hopefully I can figure out what the problem is with this thing. Now, I know this part's going to be obvious to a lot of people that work on a lot of these and stuff like that, but hopefully to prevent from someone breaking the tuner like this last shop did again, I figure I'll go ahead and show you one of the critical steps that you need to do to ensure you don't break that if you're moving the digital board out. And one of the first things you're going to need to do is remove all the screws. I mean, the screws that's holding the sheet metal back to this frame right here. You got to remove all the screws that's holding the speaker terminals from the amplifier up there. The ones all holding the digital board in. All the screws you see on the back got to come out. And then you're going to see these two hooks right here. You're not going to be able to pull this straight out like this. So if you try and do that, it's not that. You actually got to lift this over that hook there. You drop it down. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure you, of course, unplug both antennas, of course, to the Bluetooth module right there. And then you can go ahead and let the back hang off there. Disconnect the, of course, cable going to the power connector right there. And when you want to go ahead and remove the digital board, you go ahead and unplug all the connectors on the digital board. You go ahead and pull this back here, because this is connected to this board here. There's two screws you got to, of course, remove. And then you can kind of remove this from the connectors that's inside there. Once you do that, then you can take the whole digital board with the tuner completely out, and then you're not going to destroy your tuner. They just figure out how to show that. So as you can see, I successfully got the whole digital board with the tuner assembly. Important, you want to take the digital board with the tuner out at the same time. Then if you have to remove the tuner, you could just disconnect it, of course, and take it out, and then you won't crack yours in half pretty much. But you can see there, that's the repair I had to do to the PCB board and the traces to get the tuner working again, because the last shop literally practically cracked this board in half trying to force it out through the side. Don't do that. Actually take your time, remove the digital board, then you can go ahead and take the tuner out if you need to and stuff. And in most cases, if you're working on the amplifier, you don't need to. You can just put this aside and you'll be good. But I'm going to go ahead and make repairs to that left channel on the amplifier there, because you see all that bodgery. I am going to change this out with a new one, because I do happen to have a spare one of those. So I'll change that out, and I'll see what other bodge work I find when I get this amplifier completely out. To get the amplifier out, you do have to remove the screws, of course, on the amplifier board. The one for the bridge rectifier right there. And then you do have to remove the screws on the heatsink, because the heatsink's also mounted with screws that's on this side as well. You have to remove that. Then once you remove it, then you'll know it's loose, and you can take the whole amplifier stage out completely. As you can see, we moved the whole amplifier section out of the chassis of the receiver right there. And to do that, you do have to remove all the screws that's holding this amplifier board to the chassis, of course. There's also going to be 4 screws that's holding this heatsink down. Not just 2, but there's also 2 in the middle here too as well that you got to remove. You do also want to remove the 1 screw holding each of these boards down here so they're out of the way. And then you do want to remove the one holding the bridge rectifier to the chassis, that's because this is being heat sinked by the chassis. You want to go and remove that. And then once you get all the screws and everything out and all the cables kind of out of the way and stuff, the one cable you do got to be careful with though is this one, because it's kind of hidden on the front panel right there. And if you go and just try to pull, you'll end up ripping that out. Then you can get your whole amplifier section pretty much out of the receiver with no hiccups and stuff. So this is removed. Now I am looking at that, definitely is bodged up right there, so that's definitely one of the first things I'm gonna go and change. I'm also gonna change the drivers as well and get a match set. But either way it goes, you can see this did get kind of hot. I'm gonna check everything downstream and replace everything as necessary too as well, including the emitter resistors and stuff, because I am gonna change those as well. And hopefully that will get this amplifier board working again like it's supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and do some work, and I'll be back once I'm done doing that work. Didn't take much time at all to find the problem. And you can see there what's left of the resistor, because when I went to try to desolder it, it literally was charcoal and just broke to pieces. But you can see there, it also burnt the PCB, and also this link right here. And let me point at it. Yep, right there, you can see there. Yeah, it's burnt pretty bad, so I'm going to have to change that. I'm going to change all the emitters, diodes, everything on this channel. And hopefully we'll have a working channel after all said and done. So, yep, went ahead and removed most of the faulty components. There's also a diode somewhere in there too as well that's faulty, but either way it goes, I went ahead and changed all the faulty components and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and get this amplifier board back into the chassis, and hopefully we'll have a working amplifier. So went ahead and reassembled the amplifier back into the chassis and put the digital board with preamp back in as well. And it's kind of haphazardly back in there, none of the screws and stuff are in there, because right now I'm just doing testing and stuff, making sure that the left channel is actually repaired. And you can see there I got the speakers hooked up into there, as well as the actual oscilloscope probes and the signal generator feeding only in on the left channel. And we're going to see what it looks like. And you can see there, we're getting a nice clean sine wave, and of course you can hear the tone. Let's turn that off so it don't annoy me. But typically I'll use load resistors for this testing and stuff like that. I'll test the output power and stuff, but right now you can hear the left channel is indeed working and it is repaired. I did have to replace these components that were faulty, so those have been all replaced and stuff, and yeah, she is working. So the next step is, of course, to fully reassemble this thing. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do for that tune-up, but what I actually did already to it, because you can't find any spare parts for these things, so kind of that's as good as it's gonna get pretty much, but it's gonna hold together and stuff. It's a nice strong bond, so it ain't gonna fall apart or anything like that. It should be fine. But either way it goes, I'll get this fully reassembled and I'll be back once I'm done reassembling it. And yes, I had to. I ended up replacing the broken foot that the customer just taped onto it. So yeah, there's the broken one. Was able to find a replacement on eBay cheap enough, so went ahead and replaced it for him. So yes, went ahead, put all the screws back in and reassembled the receiver. Also went ahead and replaced the foot as I showed you. We'll go and power it on. Make sure it still operates as it should. Yep, and now you can actually hear audio instead of distortion.
While remaining completely anonymous. But hurry, there is a deadline to file a case. Text right now to see if you qualify.
Yep, and you can see, despite that tuner being broken in half at some point, it actually works fine. So there you go. The receiver is fully operational now. And pretty much, this will conclude this video.